Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us today on this Define Tomorrow session. I'm Megan Moran, an Office 365 coach here at Computerworld, and today I am joined by one of our clients, Mark Smith from Milsted Langdon. Mark, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi there. Hi, Megan. Yes. So I'm Mark Smith. I'm the IT director here at Milsted Langdon. We're a regional accountancy firm in the southwest. We've got offices in Bath, Bristol, Taunton, and Yeovil, and we've also got an office up in London. Although I suppose we're pretty much spread all over the southwest at the minute, as a lot of other people are. Here at Milsted Langdon, we offer a wide range of specialisms in addition to the traditional accountancy role that a lot of people expect, ranging from business advisory, bookkeeping, tax advice, both to individuals and corporates, all the way through to insolvency, forensic, and corporate finance work. So there really is a wide range of different talented people throughout the firm that we've got to try to find ways to bring the technology to work for the types of services they provide to our clients. I've been here for about 5 years now, which has absolutely flown by, to be honest, especially this year, without a shadow of a doubt. And I specialise in, I head up the IT department. I suppose I'm probably concentrating on the digital strategy of the firm at the minute, along with all the other bits and pieces that everyone in IT seems to get involved with, albeit from endpoints, infrastructure, comms, software, and services and things like that.
Lovely, thank you very much. So you mentioned there you were working on the digital strategy a lot of the time now. What technology have you been focused on most recently?
Probably the same as pretty much everyone. We've obviously been working an awful lot on remote working, funnily enough. Luckily, as a firm, we were already in a very good position before the pandemic hit. I'd like to say it was fantastic planning, but obviously no one had the hindsight that this was going to happen. But our entire company was well set up for working remotely, working from home anyway. A lot of our staff have to go out to client premises quite frequently, so they are used to not working in the office. We just had to beef up those services quite a bit early days throughout March and April, the same as a lot of other companies had to. So we spent a while having to do that, and it was all the little bits and pieces around it. Things like we might have had to get a few extra laptops for people, and making sure people could work effectively at home. So a lot of people obviously might have 3 monitors in the office, but we had the bright idea of making sure all our monitors were on monitor arms on the desks, which makes it pretty tricky to take them home to your home office. So getting a few bits of those in at the early part of the year. But luckily, like I said, that didn't actually take up too much of our time so far. So a lot of our time has been spent around trying to improve communication, collaboration throughout the entire firm, not just within the isolated departments that I mentioned earlier, but the wider firm, trying to get a consistent approach across the whole firm. And also to our clients, the number one factor for everything that we look at throughout the firm is how we can improve our customer service, how we can make our clients thrive, how we can make things work better for them, and how they can communicate better with us. So communication and collaboration, both internally and externally, has been an absolute massive point for us this year.
Definitely. Do you think the situation we're in at the moment, I'm going to try not to say it, the situation we're in at the moment has slightly improved communication throughout the organisation because people are so dispersed now, or do you think it's just changed it slightly?
It's a bit of both, I would say. So it depends. Some things cannot be done remotely or cannot be done as effectively remotely. Some of the brainstorming sessions that you have and some of the things where you're working on projects, it just seems to work better when you're face to face. Don't really know what it is, but it just seems to work better. But I think a lot of people have put the extra effort in trying to communicate better over the past few months, which has made a big improvement into how we communicate. Early days throughout April time, I dread to think how many meetings I was in every single day. It felt like people were doing meetings for the sake of meetings at one point, but that has significantly improved. And I think we have really improved the content of the communication we're doing. So we're making it much more effective. And, the likes of Teams and all those bits and pieces that are cropping up, it really is focusing the mind when you're doing that communication piece. So I think it's a bit of both. In general, I would say the communication has improved, Communication to our clients has definitely improved, which is great. I think a lot of people used to hide behind emails throughout the world. Emails are the safest way to communicate sometimes, but they're definitely not the best way. So, picking up the phone or having a video conference, we're doing a lot more of that than we used to, both internally and also with our clients.
Yeah, I've definitely seen people have become more confident with turning their videos on in video conferences than they ever used to. It's nice to actually talk to people and see their facial expressions when you can't be with them. So that is definitely a plus point for me for this situation that we're in at the moment. So probably one of my favourite questions we're asking people when we're doing these sort of sessions for Define Tomorrow is, what has been your weirdest lockdown purchase?
The strangest one we've had in the office, I would say, it was a great idea at the time. Obviously, we needed to make sure everyone was safe and sanitized for everyone. So you had all the hand gels that are absolutely everywhere at the minute.
Yeah.
But we needed to make sure we had all our laptops and things like that clean. So our central services team bought in the UV lights, which the only reason they bought it for us was because it was called a UV lightsaber. So my guys, when they're in the office, they have got a UV lightsaber. I don't think it's been used to sanitize anything, and I think they're pretty much just making Star Wars noises with it, to be quite honest.
Amazing.
But I'm sure it's got some function in there as well.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who are watching this right now that are probably a little bit jealous that they don't have that in the office, because that sounds like quite fun.
Okay, it's one of the perks for working for us, that's for sure.
Definitely. Perfect. So we're here today to talk about a project that we've recently undergone and still working on with yourselves around Office 365, Microsoft 365, and the wider picture around that communication and collaboration piece that you spoke about a moment ago. So when we started looking at this project, what were the business needs for the project as a whole, and what did that project look like when you were starting to look at this?
The big thing we wanted to do, like I said earlier, was to improve communication and collaboration. We, like a lot of other companies out there, we talk a lot and we communicate a lot, but it's not necessarily the most effective way that we're actually going about doing it. Things like our emails, everyone's inbox is absolutely horrific. Emails have evolved far too much. There's too many going back and forth, and that dreaded CC box that we all seem to get, where it starts off going to one person and then you're getting 50 people copied into the email, and actually only 2 people really care about it. So it was really important for us to try to find a way that we could actually target those important messages that are going out to people, albeit an actionable point or something that's very critical for the company, especially at the minute where guidelines are constantly changing. And also, we've got quite a few staff throughout the various offices and various different departments, some of which work in somewhat isolation because they are very specialist. And everyone's got different ways to do slightly different processes, which is fine because it works for them, but it doesn't necessarily work for the wider practice as well. So not only did we want to try to find a way to improve the communication throughout the firm and the collaboration on documents, but also try to create a standard approach where possible. Obviously, it can't always be standard. It can't always be the same because different departments within the company have got their own little nuances that we have to cater for and we have to embrace in some ways, because that's why they thrive at what they're doing.
Yeah.
But we definitely found that there was too much reliance on our file servers, our SharePoint systems. We knew that, we've known that for years. And it's just not effective having one version of a document or a template that you've got to shout across the room when you're allowed to shout and be in the same room as someone to say, can you get out of this document? I need to do it. Or you go into a document and someone's checked it out. There were so many inefficiencies in there that we just want to try to get rid of. We have to collaborate an awful lot on a lot of our documents that we're working on, especially with some of the more junior members of our teams, where we've got to coach them and train them. So we've got quite a lot of, might have some university leavers who are starting their career in accountancy. They can't do their job just by looking at a document. They need their help and assistance from the more skilled and the more people with more experience in there. And for you to have to ask someone to come out of one of the documents that you're working on, or Excel spreadsheets. After all, we're accountants, we absolutely love Excel spreadsheets, obviously. It just wasn't efficient. So that was one thing that we really needed to improve as part of this.
Yeah, so the communication and the collaboration piece as a whole, and also how they come together, because you can't really collaborate without that communication piece, really.
Yeah.
So then, looking back at this project, it was however many months ago that we started talking about it and looking about it. And obviously it's changed the way that we had to plan it, the way that we had to drive the adoption of that Microsoft 365 applications for obvious reasons. But how did the climate, I'm still trying not to say it, how did the climate change the project as a whole? And do you think in that case it did change it for the better, that things were online, or?
Well, I mean, we were already looking at the project before, let's say March happened. So we were looking at this quite a long time ago, and we were chatting to you guys prior to all this. We even had a face-to-face meeting in, I think it was February time.
We did.
When we were allowed to come into the office. Good times when we could have a coffee in a meeting room together.
Yeah.
So it was already there. We already had the plan. It was on our business plans, ready for it to be hopefully fully adopted by summer 2021.
Mm-hmm.
All that the current situation has done is it sped it up, which is great. I think, as what a lot of people are finding within IT and within technology in general, is that people are having to embrace new technologies now. They've got no choice. So let's make the most of it and embrace it. Because people know that they can't sit on their desk at work, shuffle through these papers, hand these papers to someone else. Even things like, holiday forms that still exist in so many places where you've got holiday forms passing all around. First of all, you can't pass things to people if you're at home. But also, they're finding that they need more efficient processes. So for once, and it's probably one of the only times in my 15, 20 years in IT that staff, our users, are actually asking us to make change, which is very rare. Normally it's a case of we're not necessarily forcing change on people, but we're trying to get them to do it. So I think what's happened over the past 6 to 9 months is that it's just sped up all of these processes and priorities that are happening. We had to push them back, obviously. Same as a lot of people who work in IT. March, April, May felt like a year for the amount of work and the amount of hours that we were all having to put in to get things working. But some things had to go at the wayside a little bit, and we had to push some things back into next year. So it just gave us the ability to really ramp up what we were doing and allow people to embrace the tech as well.
Yeah, I think it has really helped with certain people. I think we talk about different generations and how people like to work. It's definitely changed that mindset of a lot of people. And like you say, helped them embrace it, because if you're trying to encourage them to do it, but they don't have to do it, it's somewhat harder to turn the people who are quite reluctant into people who love it and be those champions. Whereas I think this has done a lot of that for us. And obviously it's still a journey. It's still something that people need to work on. But it has helped in that sort of sense.
Yeah, definitely. And on the point of the potentially older generation that wouldn't normally necessarily embrace some of these things and being champions of it, we've actually got some people on our champions team who are definitely those types of people. There's a couple of people there who wouldn't necessarily have embraced the technology as much as normal, but they've seen how important it was. And they've embraced it so much that they're actually trying to push ideas through and use the technology, which is absolutely fantastic to see.
Brilliant. So then looking at the project, why did you choose to work with Computerworld on this Microsoft adoption project?
Well, we've been chatting to you guys for quite a while. I've come to good old Define Tomorrow a few times, been to a few of your other events. Never quite found the right project that was going to work for what we were looking at doing, albeit it might have been that we ended up just doing it ourselves, rightly or wrongly, or the project unfortunately got passed to one side and we had to look at something else. On this one, we chatted to quite a few different companies that could offer, I'm not sure if they used the word adoption, but they, to install felt more what they were trying to do. So they were trying to technically get Teams working, technically get SharePoint and Yammer working. And, those of you who've used Teams or SharePoint or Yammer, my 4-year-old could almost install it to a degree. but it's not about the actual installing and getting it kind of working. It's how is that going to fit in with your businesses? And what was really obvious early on was that you guys weren't looking at it from a technology point of view. You were looking at it from a business process point of view. And when you were chatting to our staff, you could tell that you were looking at the processes that we follow, what could be improved throughout those processes, that some of which wasn't actually a technology change, it was actually a process change. And you weren't going to try to shoehorn technology into an area that it wouldn't fix the problem.
Yeah.
So that was quite rare for when we were chatting to other people. A lot of people were giving us a lot of consultancy on, or offering a lot of consultancy on how you can technically do it. Whereas when we were chatting to you guys, there was that great mix of both. And another part that was really important for us was that we needed to make sure that the staff adopted and embraced the technology as much as we could. And the two areas I think that really won that for us, although we're still fairly early down on the journey, I think, but we're making really good progress on it, was the initial workshops that we did with all of the staff, and the fact that it wasn't an IT project. You guys were doing it while sat in on all the meetings, but you were chatting to the staff, you were trying to find out the information rather than us trying to force it from an internal point of view. So I think the staff were more open to talk to you, and we got a lot more from it. And the other point was definitely the training. I don't think anyone can underestimate how much training is needed for these types of technology. It's not necessarily that it's complicated, because a lot of these systems really aren't. They are very basic, but there's a lot of it, an awful lot of it. And for us to be able to get the buy-in from the staff, we needed a lot of high quality training sessions that could be repeated and were delivered from a person who understood the person using the software, not from me, not from one of my techs. So the training sessions that you delivered were, you could tell that they were going to be aimed at a level where people could actually understand and relate to it, rather than one of my tech guys going in and talking about some PowerShell commands or some clever things that you can do that they really don't care about. All they care about is, how do I get my webcam working? Oh, I'm on mute. How do I unmute?
Yeah.
And then taking it to the next level from there, which a lot of places they don't. I don't think they seem to pitch it at the right level.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for that. I think, like you say, it is that business project alongside the technology project. Starting with that art of the possible session that we started with you. So looking at that art of the possible session, showing the leaders and the champions of the business what Microsoft Teams, Microsoft 365 can do for your business, but putting it into that real world example. So not just coming in and saying, and you've got OneNote and you've got Planner, but actually showing them how it can be used. Get those juices flowing, shall we say, to start thinking about how, oh, actually my team could use it in this way. I could see XYZ using it like this, and to help collaboration and communication. So yeah, definitely agree with all of that. And the training piece, I think we've got some sessions here at Define Tomorrow around training, and I think, like you say, it's really important not to underestimate that, and it's the continuous training. And it's not just a one-off and expect everyone to know how to use it. It's that keep checking in, and I think that's why when we look at this project, we have the champions. Like you said, you've got a champion program there with some people that are acting as they are the champions for the technology. They're helping their colleagues understand how to use it. So if there's any questions, they're the first people they go to, and they can help them from a real world example as well. So looking at those key stages, from anything from the art of the possible session, where we go through that with the leaders, to then rolling out the technology and then driving that adoption through the training. We've done all that now. What has the feedback been from the business?
It's been pretty much, on the whole, positive, which is always a good start. The early stages where we were doing the art of the possible and the departmental meetings, I think that's where we started to really get the buy-in from people, which made a really big difference. And one thing that has actually been quite a surprise is some of the old guard, if you will, some of the people who we never thought were going to embrace this technology. They're not going to be shouting from the treetops how amazing Teams is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people will, apart from maybe you and me, maybe.
Yeah.
But they're using it.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, if they're using it, that's got to be a positive. And a really good sign of that is, not quite on a daily basis, but not far off, I get people requesting different ways that they can use some of these things, because they're requesting and asking to do it. For instance, that team, they are a very specialist, very skilled bunch of guys who can help our other clients who aren't necessarily working directly with them. But our other departments would then have to go to them directly to get the information. Whereas they said, "Oh, can't we use some kind of community that could set up?" They went, "Oh, there was a community thing you taught us on. Could we use Yammer for this?" And that came from them. It didn't come from us.
Yeah.
So I think that goes to show that the adoption is definitely there, and the feedback's been good. Yeah.
Perfect. And let's be transparent. What were the challenges you saw throughout this project? Were there any challenges that you had to overcome, and equally, how did you overcome them?
There were definitely a few. I think some of it was the pace at which we had to roll out the training.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was partly, it's what we had to do given the current situation. We threw an awful lot at people in a very short amount of time, which was a conscious effort. We had to do it. We were getting 60-70% of the entire workforce on the training sessions, at least, sometimes even more, for 1 hour sessions, and then some recordings and whatnot. So to get people to actually get the buy-in for the training was quite tricky. And I think the one way that we overcame that was the learning zone. So we've got our learning zone on SharePoint that you guys helped us with to develop and produce. And that then means that if people haven't got the ability to see the training there and then, it's fine if they dip out of it. It's fine. It's on stream, which is then linked into the learning zone. And then we've got our Yammer community that works for our champions that they can answer questions on. So I think that then showed people that we're not throwing this at you all in one go and you have to know it straight away. There is the aftercare that everyone needs. And also we can then have the ability to keep rerunning these training sessions, which we're doing at the minute. So the recordings that we did, I'm going to rerun them. I'm going to sit in on them and answer the questions that I can. And probably throw some questions back at you for the ones that I can't.
That's fine.
So that was quite challenging. And again, the old guard that I mentioned before, that was one thing that was quite tricky as well to get their buy-in. But that was the way that we sorted that out mainly was we didn't force things at them. So if there was technology that you could see during the initial departmental meetings if they weren't keen on embracing it. And one thing that you guys were really good at, and Barry when he was chatting to them, was that we never forced the technology at them, especially at the early stages. It was a case of listening to them, think what they want to do. That might not necessarily be right, and also listen to the processes that they're following. Again, they weren't right in all the situations they were doing, but they thought they were perfect. If we then threw technology at them to fix that day one, there'd have been an uprising and they wouldn't have embraced it. Whereas we're just drip feeding the odd little bit here and there, not too long, so otherwise it would never happen. We're just chipping away at it bit by bit, and we're getting there, definitely getting there. And we have very few WhatsApp groups now throughout the various departments. We finally started to tackle those dreaded WhatsApp groups that go in every single company.
Amazing.
Bit by bit, they are disappearing, so that's good.
Good. I think as well, what is important is in those departmental meetings, whilst you say we don't force the technology, but it's also if there is an answer and it's not a Microsoft 365 outcome, if there's going to be another application that's going to help them more than Microsoft 365, the answer then is that technology. It isn't always Microsoft 365. We're not going to force that on it, even though it is ultimately a Microsoft 365 adoption project that we did. It's not always the answer, and I think that has to be clear. There's still some technologies that you used prior to using Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 that we've still got in place because they just work for your business, and Microsoft won't replace that. So I do think that's an important factor when we're doing this as well with you guys. So then finally, the end result, positive result. Are you happy with the result you've got? Obviously, it's always a work in progress. We're still working with you to make sure that everything's right, but end result?
I've got a smaller inbox, so I'm happy, to be quite honest. mean, that was one of our goals that we wanted to get to. We wanted to get to the stage where your email inbox was a focused inbox on tasks that you have to do. It might be client stuff, and Teams will never replace email. Nothing. I don't think anything will ever replace email to a degree. It definitely has its place in a business, but we have significantly reduced that. It's not quite filtering through the rest of the company quite yet, but it's starting. We're starting to make inroads into that with Yammer and things like that. So that's a big positive, definitely a big positive. Those WhatsApp groups, that's definitely a positive, without a shadow of a doubt. That was one of the pet peeves of mine, that we've got to be so careful with some of these things that are going over WhatsApp. At least we can now control that communication. It's always going to be there. Shadow IT will always be there. Yeah. So we haven't gone down with an iron fist to say you won't, but we are actively encouraging moving as many over to Teams as we can. We've got a standard approach to a lot of things. That's a really biggie. So we used to have, you'd have people going into a GoToMeeting, a Zoom meeting, a Google Hangouts meeting, a Teams, so many different things for video conferencing. Yeah. Whereas now it's Teams. If you want to make a video call, you use Teams. If you want to do an audio call, you use Teams. Obviously, if a client wants to talk to us on Zoom or something like that, it's fine. No issues with that whatsoever. But if we are initiating things, we've got our standard approach to communication. And with our communication charter that we've got, we're trying to create the structure down the lines for saying this type of communication goes via this method. Whereas previously, some people might email, some people might phone. Most people would email because they tried to hide behind it potentially. Whereas that is definitely reduced, hugely reduced, which is good to see. Yeah. And we are just starting to create that consistent standardization across there. And if everyone else's inboxes can start shrinking, that would be fantastic. 3/4, if not more, of my communication is done via Microsoft 365 now, to some degree outside of emails. To the degree that I feel comfortable to actually close my emails and concentrate on things quite often throughout the day, which I've never really felt confident enough to do previously.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Mark. That's been really useful. Thank you for your time. If anybody else would like to speak to the team at Computerworld around starting a process like this, maybe with an Art of the Possible session to see how Microsoft Teams and the 365 products can help you, head over to adopt365.co.uk/AOP, fill in the form there, and one of our account managers will be in touch shortly. Mark, how can people find Milsted Langdon if they want to get in touch with you for all of their accountancy needs?
So good old the website, milstedlangdon.co.uk. Find us on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Got some really good posts going out there from our specialists to give you a bit of advice on the dreaded Brexit that's come in, all those bits and pieces. It's non-stop for us. So get in touch if you've got any needs at all.
I thought everyone had forgotten about Brexit now that
it's fresh on the horizon, unfortunately, still.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time. Everyone else, thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of Define Tomorrow.
Thanks.